Welcome to the Phil Vogel podcast. I'm Phil, and this is the only podcast focused on dealership mergers and acquisitions. We also discuss the business of the car business. Why, you ask? Well, because that's my business. I do dealership buy-sells. Most often it's a broker role, but sometimes I'm a dealer's wingman during a transaction because I've been there and done that. As a third-generation car dealer myself, I've been advising dealers and selling dealerships since we sold the last of our stores in the early 2000s. And on this show, we talk with dealers that are making a difference, legendary dealers, and industry thought leaders that we not only discuss the actual transactions, but all of the elements of the business that relate to creating value for buyers and sellers. We also discuss news and trends and issues that are critical today to car dealers. Most of all, we want this to a place where we can have some fun, share some great content, and have awesome guests. And before I introduce today's awesome guest, I'd like to introduce and thank today's show's title sponsor, Techyon. Techyon is a new kind of DMS. In fact, it's way more than a DMS. Techyon is an automotive retail cloud. And if you haven't heard or seen Techyon in action, I promise you will very soon. Techyon is a single platform that digitizes and runs your entire business and also allows complete integration with our industry's ecosystem partners with zero integration fees. Techyon's AI engine gathers insights and personalizes both the consumer and dealership team member user experiences, smoothing out frictions that are going to arise. Increased profitability. Techyon's machine learning algorithms personalize upsell and cross-sell opportunities. Techyon has multi-dealer, multi-OEM enterprise views that deliver actionable performance metrics and KPIs. And here's the best part. Zero party integration fees. I know I mentioned that, but I had to say it again. Unlimited data access, and the data is yours. You own it. And the icing on the cake, you can cancel with 30 days notice. You have to check out Techyon today. Techyon.com. Joe Serra is president of Serra Automotive, based in Michigan. Serra consists of 52 dealerships spread across 7 states. I give you Joe Serra. Welcome to the podcast, Joe.
Thanks, Phil. Really an honor and pleasure to be here today.
I'm so glad we finally connected and got you on here. I know that you're a busy person, and while I've known you for years, we've known each other. I got to tell you, it's been a long time, and I'm really looking forward to catching up with you. So where did we find you today? Which dealership are you in?
Nope, not in a dealership. I have a small management company, and I say small, and I'll talk about that maybe throughout the show, but I run a very decentralized operation. So my management company is real small compared to what most management companies for retail automotive are today. But I'm sitting in a little town called Fenton, Michigan, right, which is close to where I reside, where my home is.
Nice. So you've been on a growth spurt the last several years, and I'd like to talk a little bit about that. But specifically, before we get into the kind of the acquisitions, talk to me a little bit about COVID and the last year. Obviously people are coming out of this, and the last several months have been really strong in the car business. Has that been your experience? And how did you guys survive COVID, and what did you do that helped in survival?
Yeah, you're correct. The last, it was this time a year ago, quite frankly,
right,
that our world was rocked. Ironically, the day that the state of Michigan, the governor closed down retail automotive, was a day that I was closing on a Honda Mazda store. I was actually signing the closing documents, and the governor was on the TV shutting down the state. And I remember this selling dealer asking me why I went through with it. He thought I would delay it. And I share with them that appreciated that, but in today's world, I think what's lacking is people of their word, and I don't have much. I'm not the brightest, but I try to be a person of my word. And so I went through with it, and we were shut down in Michigan for almost 2 full months. and I thought maybe I'd made a mistake. But as you know, and Retail Automotive knows, what actually happened was we crashed. We crashed in latter part of March. April was a disaster, and then we started bouncing back. And
Right.
Retail Automotive as a whole in 2020 was a spectacular year. We not only recouped what we had lost, but we gained from it, and we learned from it, and we grew from it. And so we were fortunate, and I give all the credit to that to my dealer partners and my associates. They went above and beyond in some really unusual and difficult times.
So what, in terms of during COVID and the subsequent crash and then uptick, so what did you see internally in terms of organic growth? I mean, obviously the used cars were in great demand. The supply chains got halted and jammed up, and now we've still got supply chains messed up with chip supplies and what have you. But or internally, where did you see the biggest growth for profits? Because profits have been huge. And where are you seeing it? Are you seeing the variable side or fixed or both? Or
Yeah, so for last year, for 2020, as you mentioned, new volume was down because the inventory was not there, for obvious reasons. And then in our fixed operations, our fixed came back, but they fell a little short of the previous year. Body shops specifically, they were down. Used vehicles were strong all year. It was if you had the product, you sold it. But the big growth, and where all the retail automotive gained last year, was in variable gross, both front and back gross profit per unit. And that was a combination of not having the inventory. So because we didn't have the inventory, we weren't forced to give it away, and we held some more front end gross, rightfully so. And we got smart about our back end F&I products. And so we generated larger variable gross on lower volume. And the question my partners have, is how long will that last? And do we have the ability to maintain it going into the future? And that's the $1 million question.
right, it certainly is. I mean, I doing a lot of Buysells, right? So I talk to a lot of dealers, and I'm sure you get a lot of deals thrown at you too that you're looking at and reviewing opportunities. But I call the last last 9-10 months COVIBITA, right? These earnings that have gone through the roof. Are they gonna stick? And that's why I asked the question, right? I mean, are you seeing the variable or fixed? I think the variable side, we're probably going to see an extended period of time of earnings because of the chip shortages, right? And also it kind of segues into a little bit about my next question, but used cars. There's been so many. The darling of Wall Street today is Carvana and Vroom and these startups in the used car space. Even Sonic, we've seen them commit in a large way, and other public groups, to used-only facilities and operations. So where do you see that, and how is that going to impact your acquisition strategy for used cars? I mean, in Michigan, you've got a lot of A-plan buyers, right? And I know a lot of trades come in that way, but then the factory auctions. Are you going to be able to source enough used cars to kind of sustain the variable side of the business with used?
Yeah, so you've asked a few questions in there, so let me just maybe hit on all of them if I can. As it relates to holding the variable gross going forward, quite frankly, I think as long as there's limited new vehicle inventory, which right now there is, and it looks like it's going to remain that way through possibly 3 quarters, maybe the whole year. As long as inventory remains tight, we'll be able to maintain that variable gross that we enjoyed in 2020. the minute that inventories get back to normal, unfortunately and sadly, we're human beings and we're going to go right back to where we were pre-COVID. And I hate to say that, and I wish I was wrong, and I beg of my partners to not let it happen, and I tell myself don't let it happen, but I'm just going to, it's going to happen. I don't want to kid myself. So when I look at deals and I look at future opportunities, I have to be careful not to fall in love with 2020 numbers. I have to look at 19, 18, see how the store performed, and try to normalize it. And that's easy to do, although the sellers want to take 2020 and expand it out for 3 years, but that's not realistic. So I just got to make sure I don't get caught in that, because it will come back to normal. I just sadly believe that.
Right.
Now, when talking about used, one of the strengths of our organization has always been used vehicles. I love used vehicles. I love that department. I love the fact that we control it 100%. I love the fact that there's not a manufacturer involved. It's us. And you and I both know the best way and the most profitable way to get a used vehicle is from a trade-in. We call our used vehicle departments the engine of the dealership. And if they're aggressively going after trades and they're aggressively putting the right dollar value in it, we sell a new vehicle or a used vehicle. We take in a trade. We do the internal gross of reconditioning it. We retail it. It just snowballs. So the best way to get trades to get inventory is from trades. So we focus on how many we appraise, what percent of the appraisals we take in, and we want to just keep raising that bar and make sure the goal's 100%. Obviously, we're not there, but that's the goal.
Are you experiencing some competition from, customers that are saying, look, I got a Carvana bid at this number. They're ready to pick up the car. They'll come pick it up at the dealership. I had a dealer telling me that the other day, where it's like, yeah, he sold the car. He hooked his own trade during the transaction to Carvana. I'm like, oh my goodness.
Carvanas, those are all great. They're great competitors, and quite frankly, I enjoy them being in the market because I'm learning some things from them. They're taking advantage of some weaknesses that Retail Automotive had, and they're finding some avenues that appeal to the consumers. And fortunately, we can do what they can do. The one advantage they now have, which is their software is phenomenal. Carvana's that I'm referring to, it's phenomenal. And so we all have to up our game in that. You mentioned Techyon earlier. Maybe they can help us get there, but there's room for all of us. And I'm spending a lot of time learning, understanding, trying to make sure I'm clear as to what makes that Carvana, what makes them appealing and of value to the consumer, and what are those attributes can I bring into my organization? And there's many.
Have you mentioned my mention of Techyon and our sponsor? Have you converted to Techyon?
We have one of our stores, and it's a good sized store in Nashville that has. And I'm glad that store did it because it's of size and scope and magnitude, and it also has a body shop and it has multiple brands to where once it's up and running and has its legs, my other partners can look at that and see if it's something they want to consider.
Right.
I entered this business in 1982. When I entered it in 1982, the DMS system, which in our business we refer to as dealer management systems, in the other world is data management systems. But anyways, it was behind the times then. And sadly, since 1982, it hasn't improved at all. So I'm just hoping for somebody, and Techyon is the one out there right now that I think has a chance. Still has some work to do. Their founder is committed. He wants it to work, but it's not an easy hill to climb. But so I'm rooting for him. I'm a huge fan. And if he's able to accomplish what I believe he can, there's no doubt in my mind, in years to come, all of my stores will eventually convert to that system. No doubt in my mind.
So you mentioned a few times so far into the conversation that you mentioned your partners. Can you talk a little bit about how you approach the growth? I'm a big, people listen to this podcast as well as talk to me a lot. I'm a big advocate. Everybody wants deal flow, but I also I'm curious as to how dealers are growing, such as yourself, with personnel, the people flow component. Um, do you have a strategy in place internally to grow and retain uh, your people? And how does that mesh in with kind of an acquisition of a new executive at a GM, executive operator? And speak a little bit to your structure and how the partnerships, not no specifics, Joe, but I mean in terms of how you approach it.
First of all, great question. And so a couple of things. So you talk about growth. For me to grow, or our organization to grow, I need three things. I need opportunity, I need capital, and I need people. And quite frankly, of those three, opportunity, there's plenty. You know that. You're in the business. You see deals all the time. There's always people looking to exit. There's always opportunities. Capital, fortunately, that's not an issue today. When the world crashes, it can be an issue, but it's not today. So capital is not an issue. And the most important piece is people. If an organization cannot outgrow their talent. And if they do, you're going to have issues. And I got to make sure if I don't have the talent, we're not growing. So your question was, how do I grow the talent? Well, first of all, you grow them, depends on your model. So my model is decentralized and I allow partnerships. I want my partners to buy in. If they so desire, they're allowed to buy into the store. That model is different than a lot of models that are out there where the person running the store is not allowed ownership. So that model and the fact that I'm decentralized and I let my partners run their stores, I don't have a Serra way of doing business. I believe that, I'm an ex-athlete, not a good one, but an ex-athlete. And I played for a lot of coaches and every coach was different. I'm watching the Final Four right now and every team that's going to make it to the finals, they play differently. One coach might emphasize defense, another might be shooting threes. They all have a different philosophy, but it's a philosophy that coach, that dealer believes in, and he recruits players, he recruits talent for the dealership that fits his model. So mine are all different. So the fact that I allow my partners the ability to run a store, I allow them to buy in, I have talent that does come to me from the outside. They're seeking the opportunity. And then internally, which is the best way, we try to grow our people. And I have partners today I literally have a partner today that started as a used vehicle porter out of high school. That is one of my partners today, and they just grew their way up. And I have many stories like that.
That's awesome. That is a great story. But it's also a testament to your culture.
It would show how kind of a person I am to give him that opportunity. No, it's just a joke.
We'll make sure we tag them in the podcast. That's perfect. Yeah. Hey, so speaking of partners, so one of your partners is pretty well known in our business, and I'm curious as to how you got into partnership with Mike Maroney in Colorado Springs. I think, were those your stores, and then you brought him in, and how did that all transpire?
Yeah, so that's even a different model. So when I look at my organization, we have Serra Automotive, and that my partnership with Mike is completely separate, but I've learned a lot from it. And so first I'll explain, it came about because I had some stores in Colorado Springs specifically, that I owned for years, many years, 20 years. And my partner in the Springs was going to retire. And I'm guessing it was 16 or 17. I think it was 16, maybe 17. And I just thought to myself, might be a good time. I didn't really have I could have moved some people out there, but there are some situations where it might not have been the wisest thing to do. So I decided maybe I would take some chips off the table and sell them. And Mike, who I've known for we used to be in the same Chevrolet 20 group many, many years back. And obviously I have great respect and admiration for him. Myself, and Don Flo and a few others started a company called Drivers Mart way back,
Right.
that got bought out by AutoNation. So I've always known Mike, respected him, and he happened to reach out and was going to buy the stores. And during the talks, he just asked, he had been with AutoNation for 18 plus years, had sort of been out of retail automotive, and I think he just wanted to make sure he had his sea legs. So he asked me if I would be interested in buying back in a minority position. And I was honored to do it. And quite frankly, since then, we've added an additional store, and it's just been a wonderful relationship and something that's helped our organization, because Mike brings, so now Mike he's involved. He comes to our dealer partner meetings. He shares his insight. He brings a different view. My people can learn from him. It's a win-win. I'm fortunate and blessed to have him, to call him a partner.
Yeah, and a dear friend. That's another great story. One of the things that's challenging out there right now, and I think we're learning a little bit more about it, but I'm curious as to what your experience and your thoughts are around. Volvo's come out and said, that they're going to do direct sales, and they're explaining the business model to their dealers. It's a bit opaque at this point, and people are trying to get their arms around it. My question is this. So Volvo said it. Are other OEMs thinking it? We see all these different, the startups and what have you, and you've got the Rivians, the electric EV makers like Rivian, and the other name, Lucid Motors, which is just down the road from me. These direct sellers, based on Tesla's experience and success, are coming to market. Do you see some of these OEMs? I think that they're thinking about it. Is anybody talking about it?
The honest answer, and it hurts me to say it, but I truly believe it, is I don't think there's a manufacturer, there might be one or two, but there's not a manufacturer out there today that doesn't wish they could be Tesla or operate like Tesla tomorrow.
Right.
That's the truth, in my opinion. I think they sit there and they say, why can't we be Tesla? That being said, I still believe in, obviously I think retailers bring great value. I can sit there and explain why a manufacturer should use retailers. And I think there's going to be a place for retailers for many, many years to come, or I wouldn't be growing. I wouldn't be staying in this industry. But do I believe that if all of them could remove franchise laws and start clean and start over, would they like that Tesla model? Yeah, if I was being honest with myself, I have to say yes. I believe they have those discussions.
So I got to think that you're right on the money. And I think that it's one of those conversations that are very difficult to be had. I am curious as to, again, you've grown tremendously in the last several years. And through acquisitions, I think you've gotten some open points. When you're looking, and this ties back a little bit to the personnel component, because what I heard you say was really good, was, you can't grow your businesses without growing your people. And so when you talk about acquiring another store, you're spread out 7 states, and probably one of the things that makes that really possible too is not having a model per se, but being flexible and letting your partners run their deals. But are you looking, when you look at deals, seeking out certain brands, certain geographies, and then are you looking for that partner simultaneously? So again, another loaded question, but I'm curious as to, I think everybody would be interested in, your thoughts on that.
Yeah. So a couple things. First of all, today as we speak, I have some internal people already in the organization that I've identified and that have raised their hand, and they've said, hey, Joe, if the opportunity ever arose and if you ever felt I was qualified, I'd like to be considered to be a partner, which is wonderful. That doesn't mean it's going to work. But so I've got some internal people there. The other thing, and maybe where I'm a little unique, when I look for opportunities, one of the things, and you mentioned brand location, obviously we all want the same brands. We all want the hot brands, the strong brands.
Right.
So that weighs to the higher side. Location, if I'm already in a market, I love campuses, by the way. If I can find campuses,
I know you
3
do.
or 4 or 5 stores in one location, call me. I'm a perfect guy to come look at it. I like that model. So a lot of factors. But the one thing that I do that I think maybe is different than others is first of all, when I buy a store, if I bring in anybody, I bring in just one person. That's my partner. Everybody else there at the store, I'm looking to learn about, learn from, give them an opportunity. And I can tell you 90% of my acquisitions, the hidden treasure is a talent that's inside the store. And so now when I make an acquisition, I also get potentially future partners. They're sitting in that store, and so the growth. So I don't want to put it another way, I don't want to buy a broken store.
Mm-hmm.
I want to buy, if I go and look at a store and the management team isn't solid, if the store isn't well run, I'm going to probably pass on it, which means I'm going to pay more. I'm not going to steal any stores because I'm not going to buy broken stores, but I want the talent. That's what I'm after.
Mm-hmm.
I want the people. And there's some great talent out there. I mean, amazing talent. And people just are looking for an opportunity and for leadership and somebody to give them a chance.
Well, and the investment that you make in that talent, right, over so many years is tremendous. I mean, it's interesting. One of the things I look at when I'm doing an analysis of a store and what have you is I look at, most statements, it's like page 6, right? The personnel account, static entries, how many people, what's the head count? And I like to compare the head counts over the years and look at the different trends and what have you. And I think that dealers have an innate ability to really drive profits via that metric. I don't know if you look at it, but it's certainly something that I look at, and the investment that they have in those people, especially technicians, and the investment that you make in the training of those people and what have you, because that's what you're buying in a going concern, right? Is the business model that the seller has put in place and the going concern, and you want those people. And I've never, at least I think the old days of, dealers buying a store and blowing people out and the whole thing, you can't afford to retaining people these days is so difficult, and it's a real challenge. And I think you've got a pretty good model. It's impressive. Do you look at those numbers, kind of the gross profit or net profit per employee, or is that something that you're concerned with or your operating partners are?
Yeah, the one we look at is gross per employee. We focus on gross per employee. We want to know what it is, how it compares to the same month previous year. We don't try to overcomplicate the business. What we try to do in our organization is we look at the same month prior year and try to be better. We try to be a little just dollar better than the same month prior year. Now this year is going to be a little unique in that we don't want to compare to last year because of obviously COVID. So this year we brought it back to forecast. But in the past, we just want to beat the previous year. And if you start to do that and get focused on it, but the one metric that you referred to earlier was gross per employee. And that's one that we do look at closely in all our stores. And you can learn a lot from that, especially even in acquisitions. We look at it when we're acquiring a store And it tells me a lot right there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think I was visiting a dealership many years ago as a Honda store in Arizona, and just talking about technicians, right? Master techs and whatever. And they had the technician's name above their stall and the years of service. And I looked at some of these people and I'm like, 15 years, 12. And I'm looking at the investment that doesn't get calculated into the financial statement anywhere. But like a master technician, those employees, your investment in those people is huge year after year after year, and it's something that is invaluable. And anyway, it's something I look at, and I'm sure you do as well.
Business is
I'm
all
curious.
people. You know that,
It
Phil. It
is.
doesn't matter what industry, what business, no matter what we do. When it's all said and done, or even sports, it comes down to people. And the business or the team or whatever that has the most talented people, the most loyal people, the most compassionate, caring, client focused, they're going to win. No doubt about it.
Joe, I appreciate the time you've taken today, and I cannot thank you enough for sharing your insights and being as candid as you are. I hope it was a pleasurable experience for you as well. And I just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, I enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
Excellent, Joe. And until next time, everybody, I thank Joe Serra. And remember, don't take any third-party post-dated, third-party out-of-state hold checks. Until next time.